Hey, welcome back to the Cryptocurrency Show. Just a real quick one today. I'm answering one of your messages to me, one of the viewers and listeners to the podcast. This show will not be on the podcast. This is just for YouTube, and I did it after. I'm recording this after I've already recorded the podcast for the day. This comes from listener Derek, and he had a really good question about an episode that I did on the podcast the other day when I talked about the problem that the head of Visa was having with cryptocurrencies. And a lot of times, sometimes when people try to explain things, they do it from a certain set of understanding where it's really easy to forget that not everybody's working with all the same tools. And I worked in financial instruments for over a decade, so my perspective is a little bit different. So I apologize that I'm going to get a little bit more in depth. And if you understood the Visa, Mastercard, American Express sort of theory the other day, then fine. This you already get it. But you know what? A lot of people don't. So I'm going to break this down really quick. And I hope that, if you guys have questions like this, it's very important. There's three kinds of knowing. There's the things that you know, and you know that you know those things. And then there's the things that you don't know, but you also know that you don't know those things, right? That could be like how to be a rocket surgeon. You know what I mean? Like, well, we don't know those things. But then there's the things that you don't know that you don't know. You're not aware that you don't know those things. So anytime somebody asks questions, that's good. It's like that thirst for knowledge and that journey towards the truth. I applaud that by all means, and that's what I'm doing in this particular YouTube show today. Let's go to the message here and have a read of it, and you can see this is the video was Visa, Mastercard, Amex, and the cryptocurrencies, and listener Derek calls in. Writes in, look at this. I have a skyrocketing 44 views. Derek Paulson says, I listened the other day on the podcast. I was following the story about the credit cards and buying a plane ticket far out in advance, and I didn't exactly get what you were trying to say. What exactly is it that has to happen to change the way that credit card companies interact with cryptos? Exactly. That's the question. When you rhetorically ask, when the mathematicians figure out a way to solve this math problem for the credit card companies, what is that going to do to the cryptocurrencies? He says, I don't know the answer, haha. And then we talked for a little bit. Look, here's the thing. The reason I was saying that is that, we can all look into the future and hope that what we see is a day when Visa, MasterCard, and American Express are using cryptocurrencies to complete their customers' transactions. Okay? Because I would imagine that in the Western world, probably 95% of every purchase that's, $500 or less is paid for with your debit card, not a credit card, but just your normal bank card. And Visa, MasterCard, and American Express, they're processing all of those transactions for you, and they get to keep a little cut, you see. So they are very interested in making money. That's their whole thing. And when a new avenue of revenue opens up, you better believe they're going to be interested. Of course, they're interested in it. And what they're saying is like right now it's too volatile. And so what his question is what. Take the plane ticket example. That's the one that the head guy at Visa had cited the other day. He's like, well, what if you buy a plane ticket, right? When you buy a plane ticket, you don't use it right then. You don't use it for months. But you buy it and we pay it. So a number of things happens in that transaction, okay? You swipe that card or you put your card digits into, Expedia or whatever when you buy your plane ticket. And as soon as you hit go, you can log into your bank account and it will say, whatever, let's say it's $1,000 plane ticket. you'll see that that money has been clamped down. It's not exactly out of your account yet, but Visa has already communicated to your bank, like, that $1,000, that's ours now. And you can see that reflected in your bank account. However, that money has not left your bank account. Like, let's say you're with Bank of America, and Bank of America has not transferred that money over to Visa. And also, Visa communicates, so they've already communicated that to your bank. They also communicate to, let's say it's Delta Airlines, or if you're flying to Australia, it's Qantas, right? And they communicate to Qantas, like, look, we just guaranteed our customer that this ticket belongs to them now, right? And Qantas has an agreement with Visa, so they say, okay, this is Derek Paulson's plane ticket to fly to Sydney from LAX on whatever day. That's his now. But they haven't received the money, right? So there's a bit of limbo in there. And Visa's in the middle of it. So let's just say that Qantas accepted Bitcoin payments, and your bank accepted Bitcoin payments, and now Visa is now making a transaction in Bitcoin payments. So let's say they set that Bitcoin aside to pay your bill to your bank, and they set that money, that Bitcoin aside to send over to Qantas in this example. What would happen if all of a sudden there was a 10% drop in the value of Bitcoin? Well, in this example, if Visa had not completed those transactions before that happened, then they would suffer a $100 loss in this transaction, right? Multiply that by however many people fly every day. It's millions upon millions. Millions and millions and millions of people fly every day. Okay, so you're talking a huge amount of risk. So when Visa's looking at this, like, look, I like Bitcoin just fine, but the fact is that, yes, although it can go up 100% in a day, which it has certainly done, and it can go down 20% in a day, which it has done. Like, there's no tool in place right now that protects us from that risk, right? It's a lack of a financial product, a financial instrument to protect them from that kind of risk, and protect Qantas from that kind of risk, and protect your bank from that kind of risk. There's nothing there yet. Okay? Now, what's another real world example where there is a tool for that? Okay, I'll give you an idea of why you should be looking at this thinking, yeah, okay, this should be a very doable problem to solve. All right? Take, for example, there's transactions that happen all the time, and we're getting into the world of money and banking and whatever, that most people never see this. Okay, you know that GM, right, General Motors, or Ford or Chevrolet, they build cars, and to build those cars they need aluminum, right? So aluminum, most of it right now comes from Indonesia, right? That's where they mine the aluminum. They pull it out of the ground, and they send it to they melt it down, and they turn it into sheets of aluminum. And then somebody calls them up and says, hey, it's Bob here from General Motors. I need 100 tons of aluminum. I don't know what the price is on aluminum, but let's just say it's $100 million, right? Or maybe not $100 million. Let's just say it's $10 million, okay? So the people in Indonesia say, okay, it's $10 million, and we'll get that on a ship and sail that across the ocean for you here right away. Now, it doesn't exactly happen that easy, all right? $10 million is a lot of money, and nobody has $10 million in cash, right? Nobody has that much cash. So you're not gonna ship $10 million to Indonesia, put it on a boat, ship it over there. That would be stupid. There's a whole process that goes into that. When General Motors calls Indonesia and puts in their orders for aluminum, they have to post collateral. By the way, number one form of collateral for these types of transactions in the United States is federal student loans called Stafford loans. All right, and if you ever want to have a couple drinks with me and listen to me go all conspiracy theory on you, I'll be happy to explain this whole thing to you. But I digress. All right, so the GM posts collateral and they say, look, if something horrible goes wrong, we have this much money in federal student loans that are backed by the federal government, and if I don't pay you, or if something happens, the economic system collapses, you can have these assets. All right, so they put that aluminum on a ship at that point, but there's still the matter of the payment, right? The problem is that in Indonesia, they don't spend US dollars. That's not their currency, so they can only take payment in their own currency, right? So now you have to have what is called a currency, wait for it, trader. There's a professional person that all they do all day is they work for GM and they work for this company in Indonesia, and they work at, like, the place where they go to work is there's a bank in Kuala Lumpur where most international transactions go through, where people sit down and they crunch the numbers and they do all the math on the currency conversion and what they do to protect GM from the value of the Indonesian currency from skyrocketing. Because remember, when they make the payment, it's the agreed upon amount is in that Indonesian currency. So when it comes time to pay that bill, it's that amount of currency, it's not the value, not $10 million US, it's whatever the value of that currency is on that day. You see what I'm saying? So what happens is before that money transfers over, somebody has to figure out how many futures contracts or options contracts that GM needs to take to protect themselves against a swell in the value of that currency. It happens all the time, all right? So there's all these, just off of this one phone call that Bob made to the company in Indonesia, there's all these other people who have to get to work. There's lots of money involved and lots of mathematics and all these different things and all of these different financial products like futures contracts and options contracts that these companies use to protect themselves from the volatility of currency. So there's already those instruments. They're already there. We've already talked about 3 of them: futures contracts, options contracts, and federal student loans as collateral, the number one form of collateral. All right, so there's 3 already. So what I was saying to your question, Derek, was he says, well, I was following the story about the credit cards and buying a plane ticket far out in advance. I didn't exactly get what you were trying to say. What I was trying to say is that right now, GM wants to buy the aluminum. The company in Indonesia wants to sell the aluminum, and they've already pulled it out of the ground and smelted it. All right, he who smelted it, dealt it. That's already in place, but there is nothing there. There's no financial product in place for Visa, MasterCard, and American Express to hedge themselves from or with, either one works, the absolutely gut-wrenching, horrific volatility in the cryptocurrency market. It's just not there. So there's no way right now that these companies can assume that kind of risk, because, like I said, if they lose 10% on Bitcoin, that's not just $100 in that example. It's $100 multiplied by however many people flew that day and purchased their plane tickets with their Visa card. You understand? Like it's they could go out of business in a day. And so what we're looking for, since that is such a big problem, we know that Visa, MasterCard, and American Express are interested. They're seeing what's happening, and they're thinking like, well, if this makes transactions easier for our customers, then we have to consider it. We have to consider this new form of currency because so many people now want to be able to use this currency, this type of currency freely. So when somebody comes along, not if, but when somebody comes along and introduces a financial instrument and it invents a financial instrument, and that's not a rare thing. That happens all the time. People invent things like this all the time. When somebody figures the thing out that solves this problem and makes it so that like the value of that cryptocurrency is agreed upon and settled in that moment, right? Let's say, just for the sake of conversation, if Bitcoin goes back to 20,000, right, and then it's safe to say that it could easily go back down to 10,000. It's safe to say it could easily go up to 30,000, right? What Visa, MasterCard, and American Express and Qantas and 7-Eleven and everybody else who accepts Visa, what they need in place is like at a point of sale, like once you swipe that card, everybody agrees that this is how much Bitcoin is worth at this very moment, and everybody has to accept that as payment, right? That would be just one way in my mind. As I'm just sitting here spitballing, that's one way to go about it, right? I'm sure there's other ways. I'm not going to get into that, but that's the thing. Do you think Visa, MasterCard, and American Express are interested in making yet even more money? Right? Are they a bank? Do they have those concerns? No, they're not a bank. They are there to facilitate transactions, and they make a lot of money doing that. They are not a political organization. Now, it doesn't matter that they pay politicians and they pay off lobbyists or whatever to get more favorable concerns. They're supposed to do that. But that doesn't make them a political organization. What they do, what their sole purpose in life is to facilitate transactions so that they can get just a pinch of that transaction, and they do quite well. And so it is in their best interest to listen to everyone, all the comers to that market who come to them and say, hey, look, I invented this thing for you. Have a look. They are definitely going to be looking at all of those things for sure. And once this gets figured out and their money comes in, that means every time you see somebody swiping it at Starbucks or 7-Eleven, you know what I mean? Or when you're walking through the airport, you think all those people are carrying cash? What kind of idiot carries around cash nowadays? Dude, you can go months without seeing an actual bill. You know what I mean? Like a dollar bill. Once that happens, and every time you see people swiping their cards, that's going to be money that very realistically is being transacted in cryptocurrencies. That means more money coming in and out, that more market capitalization, money coming in and money going out of currencies. And that's a good thing, because what makes currency valuable is, one of the main things that makes currency valuable is the rate in which it moves, right? That's okay. I'm sorry, that's probably not common knowledge. When you have money, having money in your bank account is considered a liability, and having people owe you money, having debts outstanding that are owed to you, that's considered an asset. So cash is bad. People owing you money is good. All right, and the more you can lend your money out, the faster money moves. The faster money moves, the more money comes towards it. The more that money comes towards it, and the faster it moves, the more valuable that money is. And there's books written on this subject, and they've not been able to come up with a very clever name for it, so now they just call it velocity. The velocity at which money moves is what determines its value. And the US dollar moves the most. Bitcoin, moves, well, the math would suggest it moves the most. There's, it has 30% of the market in it. So that's why Bitcoin is king. So anyways, that went about 15 minutes longer than I had hoped to. So I hope that answers your question. That's the sort of redo of the Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and why it is that if and when that happens, it's a game changer. You know what I mean? Like if you're not in some cryptocurrencies when that happens, you will be looking back on when that happens as like the holy crap, I can't believe I missed that one. You know what I mean? It could take a couple years, could take a couple days, it could take 10 years. It could never happen. Who knows? But that's it for today. Please hit the share button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon on there so that you'll be notified when my new videos come up. Thanks you guys so much for the support, and we will talk to you another time.